Hi, I'm Tracy Giese, Director of Global Sales Education, and we're proud to introduce National Sales Director Kathy Helou's 1994 Leadership Conference class, Fasten Your Seatbelt. This quarter's selection in our new Director Success Series, Best Loved Classics. This library of classics includes many of the speeches and classes from years past that you've enjoyed and requested. So get ready for excitement and inspiration as Kathy shares her passion for the Mary Kay business.
I chose the topic, Fasten Your Seatbelt. When you're a $1 million director, we get to choose what we want to teach, and this idea was inspired in Bermuda when I was sitting at the $1 million dinner with Mary Kay. And I happened to be sitting right next to her. As is a privilege when you're at the $1 million dinner, she rotates tables, and she sits with all of the $1 million directors. Not just number one, so it's really exciting that she just makes that rotation. She has dessert one place and hors d'oeuvres one place and dinner one place, and they just move her around from table to table, which is just absolutely wonderful. And I said to her, Mary Kay, we had a discussion about how to build red jackets. And she said, well, Kathy, what do you do? And I said, you know, I sell and I recruit and I do this and I do that. And she said, why don't you teach them how to do it all? She said, and tell them just to fasten their seatbelts. And that's where this class came from. It was really inspired by Mary Kay, so I thought that was kind of interesting. I always liken the Mary Kay career to a roller coaster ride. I am a thrill seeker. If it's a little roller coaster, I want to ride it. Then I want to find the middle roller coaster. Then I want to get on the big granddaddy roller coaster, because that's the way the Mary Kay business is. There are emotional highs and lows and hills and valleys, and there are technical highs and lows and hills and valleys. And you get a new consultant, she gets on the roller coaster, and she's filled with anticipation. She's so excited. And they start up that hill, as some of them do in their careers, and all of a sudden they want to bail out because it looks too steep. But you can't bail out, you got to go down the hill. And some of them lose their stomach, and others of them can't wait for the next big hill. And then you're up and you're down and you're over around and you're plummeting to great big bottoms of the hill, and all of a sudden everything levels out. And the end of the roller coaster is like a flat line, and you get off, and what do you want to do? Run around and get on it again. And isn't that like your consultants? They get in, they're emotionally high because they just joined Mary Kay and they're in a great unit, they're all excited, and you've got them all pumped up and their attitude is great, and they tell their best friend they joined and they go down that hill and they crash. Then they come back up and they sell a complete and they come back down because it gets returned. They get their first 3 recruits and then one drops off and they're losing their red jacket. And isn't it that way with sales directors? I mean, we're excited, we debut, we're on top of the world, we're superstars from our unit, and all of a sudden we're not. We're trying to figure out who we are, we've lost our identity. And the 30 people that we signed up, the last 10 were our family and friends and our relatives, and they're gone. And in 6 months, your termination showed 10, and you're devastated. And you're at the bottom of that hill again, and you're starting to clank back up, but you know what, we don't get off, we just keep riding it. And so that's why I love this business. It is just a thrill a minute. Isn't it? And there's such a balance in Mary Kay. I mean, I sat down to type this class and I said, okay, we have to balance it all. And I love to do it all. I mean, I can't imagine just picking recruiting and not selling, and I can't imagine just selling and not recruiting from my selling appointments. I just can't imagine that. I consider them one and the same. And I can't imagine that all of us in this room don't, because if we don't consider it one and the same, how are we going to transfer that to our consultants? Who we tell them, well, if you're going to sell, why aren't you recruiting? Because, see, when they're active, they're happy and they're productive, and when they're not active, they're non-productive. And they make our lives miserable. And then we become brownie leaders. And you thought you were a sales director with professional women, and they're weenie whining on your answering service. And so it's a real roller coaster, and there has to be a balance. The balance has to start with you. But I consider balancing it all, and these are the areas that I consider you have to balance. First and foremost is your family and your family priorities. That has to be your first balance. Then you have to learn how to sell and recruit personally. You have to keep building while you're doing it, so you have to be building. You have to keep maintaining what you built. How many of you take 3 steps forward and 14 steps back? You had a great month, and all of a sudden, it's not the next month, it looks like you didn't have that month. So you have to learn how to maintain while you're building and personally recruiting and selling and keeping your family going. You have to remember that you have key people that can't be forgotten. That's another balance, are the key people. Then you have to balance out good sales meetings, great quarterly events. Then you have to deal with their personality highs and lows. Then you have to deal with life. Our technical job never changes, but our emotional job changes every day, doesn't it? We can teach our consultants how to sell, we can teach them how to book, we can teach them how to recruit, we can teach them how to follow through, but we can't always pick them up. And I think that's the hardest thing. We get so personally involved with them. We have to detach ourselves that way, because otherwise you won't be an effective sales director teaching them and being able to balance it all yourself. So, I'm going to tell you the first thing that you have to learn to do if you want to have a balance is you have to learn to communicate. It's the key. Communication is definitely your key. You have to communicate the goals with your family for your Mary Kay in your personal life and what's most important for your goals of your family and how they interlock with your Mary Kay. Then you have to decide how you're going to achieve those goals. Who's got what job? Have you ever come to a point where you say, okay, whose job is this anyway? This is not my job. I don't wash windows. I don't run the vacuum cleaner. This is not my job. And your husband says, well, it's not my job to make deliveries either. You have to plan your teamwork so that you're both happy and you're going in the same direction. You have to clarify the goal of what it is to your family that you're achieving and striving for so you don't have guilt feelings at night when you're working 3 nights a week. You have to sit down and clarify what's important to you and what your work ethics are going to be. In other words, you have to get your household in order by communicating. If there's no harmony in your household, it's not going to work, because you will never be enjoying your career if you're living a guilty feeling of what you're doing and trying to justify all the time. And if you sit down with that important person in your life and those children in your lives and the people that matter to you, and you lay the groundwork and you have everybody have their designated jobs and responsibilities, you're going to have a balance in the home which will allow you to move forward in your Mary Kay business. But it starts in the household. It doesn't start out in the field. It doesn't. It does not start out there with your unit. It starts at home. And how about those people that say, all you do is work evenings? Well, I want to tell you something about working evenings. Again, that's a choice. I know many Mary Kay sales directors and consultants that don't work evenings, that do day things, because there's many people who have professions, like nurses, that they're able to do classes during the day. It just depends on the clientele you're seeking. However, I cherish the time that my children get off the bus at 3:10 and 3:50. My one daughter walks in at 3:10 every day, and I'm there every day for her. Even if I travel out of town on Tuesday, I don't travel till 4 o'clock. I am there Monday through Friday. I'm there when she leaves in the morning. I'm there when she comes home. We have a half hour of piano practice, she and I do. That's the time I stop working and I go sit there because I really want to be involved in that part of her life. Then I leave for a while my husband does homework with her because he likes that and I don't. And so that's wonderful that we have that choice to do that. Most people that work traditional jobs who say our evenings are consumed with Mary Kay, you know what their evenings are consumed with? The piano lessons, the baths, the dinner, the homework. How much quality time is there in that? It's the same thing we do, just at a different time frame. Right? So you have to really realize that we choose to work evenings. Your children, when they get their baths and go to bed, are probably in bed at 8:30 or 9 anyway. And so are most other people's. If you don't have children the ages I'm talking about, you certainly are going to be approaching and recruiting people that have children at my age. Also, I believe if you want to keep a balance, you need to hire help. Now, I'm not talking about a full-time live-in person and a full-time housekeeper. You have to grow into your help. And I hope this really helps new sales directors who say, well, I know why Kathy Helou is successful because she has a full-time nanny and a full-time housekeeper and she's got a secretary. I could afford a housekeeper once every 2 weeks. I paid her $35 and she did the heavy stuff once every 2 weeks. I made sure that I justified that by having a skincare class when she would come on that Thursday. So you really need to remember what you're saying and the role model that you are for your people so that they can see that you have a balance in your life, okay? And as I said, start minimally and grow into more. I believe here's what you need to do as a Mary Kay sales director. Design your life in your mind exactly as you would like to live it, and then design the plan to allow that to be possible for you. But you have to see it in your mind first. Design it in your mind how you would think a perfect household would flow, and communication with your husband and your children and with your consultants in your unit and your schedules, and that they could adhere to it, but design it first. The second thing you need to do after you communicate is you need to commit to your business. Now, committing to your business can be stressful because then you're making some real solid commitments. And commitment, let me tell you the definition of commitment. It's wiping out all other options. It's non-negotiable. There's no other alternative to commitment. I have never seen a bedraggled sales director who's committed. Don't you get energized when you have a feeling inside that you're committed to a greater purpose? You don't get drained, you get energized. And you know, I think the only people that have no stress are 6 feet under. What do you want, stress or death? Why would we think Mary Kay would be stress-free? Was your other opportunity stress-free? Whatever you did before Mary Kay, did you have no stress in your life? I would venture to say, if I ask you to raise your hand, you're here because the other thing was so stressful, this will look up to you. So remember why you came into this business. And remember that everything is going to have a certain amount of stress, okay? Once I decided to stay in Mary Kay, because I came in November and didn't go to work until February, I sat for 3 months as the greatest student that Mary Kay ever saw. I was one of those people that didn't get out of the starting gate because I didn't know how to get out emotionally. I didn't feel competent. I didn't feel like I could do it. And that's the difference between healthy self-esteem and self-confidence. You got to instill confidence in your people. But once I decided and removed all options that this is what I was going to pursue and make work, I said, I'm going forward and I'm not looking back. I'm not going to question the decision that I made. It's like the New World. When the explorers came to the New World, you know what they did when they landed and got on the land? You know what they did? They burned their ships. There was no option. They couldn't get back on and row the other way. They had to make it work in the New World. You need to burn your ship. Tell yourself there's no turning back. You're going to find a plan and make it work. Get clear in your mind based on what it is you want out of your business, okay? I don't want to be on the phone with my customers. So I delegate that to my secretary. People always say to me, how can you maintain all of your customers? I don't. I let Mary Kay maintain them much more professionally than I ever could hope to, with a mailing 4 times a year. It's a done deal. You should have it a done deal as well. Building people will produce the income. So delegate those things that you do not need to be spending your time doing. Don't ever confuse activity with accomplishment. Decide what things you personally do best and delegate the rest. I have a sense of urgency about talking to key people. I can almost hyperventilate when I wake up in the morning, deciding who I should call first to get her a jump start for the day. You know that one phone call from you can set them whirling. And a phone call that you don't make because you're doing something else is a non-productive day for a person who needs a jump start. I have a unit of over 400 people, even with 21st line. We still have about 430 consultants left. That's a big unit to manage. We have a secretary, but I want you to know she only works 24 hours a week. So we have it worked out, and the things we don't want to do, Debbie, our secretary, does. And so that's what I mean about getting a balance. The next thing you need to do is you need to have a personal goal. And I will tell you, my goal has always been to do both courts. If I do sales court and don't do recruiting, something's wrong with this picture. And why would I ever do recruiting? It's harder to recruit if you're not selling. There's more rejection, I believe, because when you're selling, you're so enthusiastic about making the money and what a great commission, because you know that that's the level they're coming in at when you're recruiting them. You can be more enthusiastic in your pursuit of people. So why wouldn't you personally sell and recruit? I can't understand it. I think they parallel each other. And I also believe that if you want to build from here on out and have balance, the growth spurt has to start with you, not your unit. You have to be willing to initiate it, and that begins with a court of recruiting. When you decide that you're going to be in the court of recruiting, you can control your upward mobility. When you decide not to be in the court of recruiting and let your people do it, they're in control of your upward mobility. You put it right back in their hands. You let go of the reins. When you're doing personal business and personal recruiting, are you happy? What happens when you're happy? You're more productive. When you're more productive, who else is more productive? Your consultants. When you're not productive and your light is not shining through, by example, they know your light is dim. I always say there's 2 kinds of people that walk into a room. Somebody who walks into a room and absolutely lights it up, it's electricity. And then there are other people who walk into a room and you don't even notice them. They silently slip in and their presence is unnoticed. What kind of a person are you? Ask yourself. Ooh, that's kind of scary, isn't it? And I know you don't want to hear this, but I'm sorry. You're going to hear it anyway because I'm the teacher. Personal recruiting is what you should all go home and focus on. Personal recruiting. If no one else wants to play the game in your unit in any given month, and many times I look back and say, what happened to them? There's 400 of them I know. I don't see any of them though. Where are they? That's not the same group I had last month. What is going on? If they don't want to play the game, you personally recruiting can still maintain a Cadillac unit on your own personals. You got to leave your house to do it though. They're not going to come knocking on your doors. They're not going to beat your doors down. And they're not going to follow you home. You're not a Pied Piper, and neither am I. I have to go out and play my flute if I want to recruit. I had to throw that in there in case you got bored. You can rebuild a new unit yourself every year. You can make the court of sales and make the court of recruiting on your own efforts. And I want to tell you something that really struck me, and I thought, oh my gosh, thank you, Lord, for this inner strength that you've given me. Do you know that if I had chosen not to recruit my last year before going national, my unit would have achieved the $1,950,000 unit club? Now, how many of you would have remembered if Kathy Helou and her leading ladies did $1,900,000, or did they do $1,950,000? You wouldn't remember. How many will ever forget that we reached the $2 million mark? Is it important for you to recruit? Absolutely. You can put yourself in a new unit club ozone all by yourself and be orbiting around there knowing what you contributed to your unit. And then you can set goals and heights that are even greater and higher than ever because you led by example. Mary Kay says sales directors are successful because they, number one, lead by example, number two, lead by example, and number three, lead by example. That's what Mary Kay tells you. And why wouldn't we want to recruit? Don't we bring in the greatest people in our unit? Don't your superstars emerge as your personal recruits and then your offspring sales directors and the people you want to spend the most time with? They're quality people that you're attracted to. My primary focus has always been and always will be as a national sales director to lead by example. Because I then can stand up and paint the vision of walking on that stage and talking about how great it feels, and join me on that stage, and I can paint the vision and the dream from the feeling and doing it myself. How can you encourage your people to be on the national court on that stage when you haven't walked on it in that capacity? You have less frustration and less disappointments if you keep control of your unit by leading the way. Here's another example at a much smaller scale that leads to the big stage and the big picture. If you tell your unit to bring guests to functions, you better have a guest yourself. How can you stand up there and be disappointed in them when you don't have a guest? I can't understand how sales directors can say they just don't bring guests. And all I have to do is go, how many did you have Monday? And they look at me like I've grown a third eyeball. Me? Guests? Of course you and guests. You have to show them by example to bring guests to meetings. If you expect them to be star consultants, do you know what you have to do? You have to be a star consultant. I have many sales directors, and I'm appalled that they're not star consultants. And if you don't have at least 50 unit members in your unit, you could be a star consultant on those classes you should be holding. And if you're not holding classes, do you think your unit is holding classes? You have to do it. Our job is to recruit. It never ends. It doesn't end at the end of the month. It starts all over again. I say we have stress 12 times in Mary Kay. That's the end of the month, 12 times. Because, you know, we rip it out at the end, don't we? Okay. Build your business on rules and not exceptions. The cream cannot rise to the top if there's not enough milk. Right? You got to build it. Don't build it on exceptions. Don't wait for one superstar to do it all. You got to make the milk so the cream rises to the top. Keep building, building, building. Whatever challenge you give your unit, if it's a booking challenge, a selling challenge, a recruiting challenge, if you're not willing to personally rise to the challenge, then don't expect them to do it either. Don't expect them to do anything that you're not willing to do. Where do I find personal recruits? People ask me all the time, as busy as you are, where do you find personal recruits? First place I find them is warm booking. I find them at classes. I do 2 skincare classes a month. I find them at classes. I do them at facials. I facial people that I've warm booked, and I only facial them if I know I'm going to recruit them. I wouldn't just hold a facial to hold a facial. I'm holding a facial to recruit a woman. Otherwise, I'm going to tell her to come to one of my classes and join in if I don't know that I'm planning on recruiting her. If she doesn't really yank at my heartstrings, I'm just going to invite her to a group function. But if she does yank at my heartstrings, I'm going to sit down and personally facial her if I can't get her to hold a class. Guest at meetings. I always have guests at meetings. Okay, always. I meet people in restaurants. My greatest forte lately has been to recruit flight attendants. I've just gotten real good at it because I'm traveling a lot. and it's a great opportunity to recruit them. They don't want to fly. Start out by giving them some Mary Kay hand cream for their dry hands. It's a great way to start the conversation. Just pull it out, pull your makeup out, and just sit there and pamper yourself for 2 hours, and her curiosity will get the best of her. Okay? After she serves people and sits down, they're bored. They're looking for things to do. Get some makeup out, a woman can't resist it. My last 6 offspring sales directors, one was a waitress. She was waiting on me. She became a sales director, pulled her out of the restaurant, recruited her. Another one is in the front row here. I met her at a Christmas party last December. She's here as a new sales director. Made sales director in 11 months. Just ran into her, bumped into her at a Christmas social. Another one I met at my daughter's school. She approached me. Another one was referred to me. Another one, I asked her to be a glamour model for me. That's how I met her. Warm booked her, asked her to be a model for me. Now, how do I personally recruit, and how do I get away with not having the guilt feelings of working with them with a big unit and being a sales director and trying to do it all? First of all, when I warm book people, I invite them to come to my meeting and have a glamour makeover, or if it's my week to do beauty show, I invite them to be a model for me. I always ask my personal guests to be my makeover models, always at my classes. I don't rely on them to bring people. How many times have you set up a beauty show class and nobody shows up? Well, I never get upset because it's time I can spend, and I'll say, I can't believe this, nobody's here. Maybe it's the wrong night. Invite them to Saturday workshops and brunches. Having your own prospects is the way you personally recruit. Every Wednesday night without fail, I do a career coffee. I always tell people, my customers, if they stop by, would you mind doing me a favor? Stopping over Wednesday night when you pick up your product and just staying for 45 minutes. I have got to do a Mary Kay interview with a customer to teach my new consultants how to talk to their prospective recruits. And I know this is probably not anything you'd ever consider. You're one of my greatest customers, and I certainly don't want to lose you as a good customer. But if you'll come over and pick up your product and listen, I'll give you da-da-da-da-da-da. It's either a discount or a gift. And your customers are always stopping by. Maybe they aren't at your home, but they are at mine. They're schooled to come and pick up their product for a discount. I don't go and make deliveries. I used to make deliveries as a new sales director who was trying to recruit all the time. But now you get to where you can just invite them over and they want to come over. The other thing, select your recruiting prospects and invite them to your next success meeting or your career coffee or your power brunch or your snacks and facts or whatever you do to get people to come over. But you need to have inviting options. It's just like booking options. Don't invite people to come to a skincare class and not have plan B, plan C, plan D, and plan E. I'll say, what about Monday? Could you come as a guest? Oh, that's not going to be good. Well, what about Wednesday night? Would that be good for you? No? Well, a week from Thursday, I have a beauty show class. I'd love to have you as a model. How's that? Well, we have a fashion show on Saturday, the 4th Saturday of the month. Which of those would be best for you? If you invite them to many different things, I promise you they'll select one. If you invite them to one and it's not works out in their schedule, they're done. We've gotten away from the fundamentals on which Mary Kay built this solid foundation. We have gotten away from booking, selling, recruiting, following up. We don't even invite them anymore half the time because we know that they're really not interested. We sabotage ourselves. I always team my personal recruits with each other, and we call them power partners. You find one, you recruit her, you introduce her to the other one that you recruited, and you tell them that you're personal recruits and that you're not only their personal recruiter, but you're the sales director of a unit, and so they need to stick together. And I always say to my personal recruits, Becky, this is Lori, and this is Kim, and this is Susie, and this is Joni. They're all my personal recruits. They can help you through any situation that's going to arise. They're strong. You're a strong group. And when you hook them together and they're not leaning on you, guess what kind of sales directors they are? Strong, independent, not leaning on you. Let them lean on each other. Then they pull each other's strengths and they play on each other's strengths and weaknesses. So get your power partners together. That's personal recruits. Team them up. And I'm always very upfront when I recruit people, and I'll say, this is when you can count on me. Becky, you can count on me Monday nights to motivate you, to educate you, to communicate with you. You can count on me Wednesday nights to help you build your personal team. And you can count on me to do a skincare class where you can bring your personal guest every other Thursday night. And those are the times that you can count on me. That way she knows that I'm not at the end of the telephone 24 hours a day, every day, that this is my schedule and this is when you can count on me. Always let people know when they can count on you so that they don't say, I call and she's never there. You know, the best time for people to count on you is to see you in action on Monday night with personal guests, selling product, interviewing through a career copy environment where you're not running around the city interviewing one-on-one. That is not productive time unless it's an isolated case where you're building one person and she can't bring people to you because there's a distance problem. That's different. There are always exceptions, but don't build your business and your unit on exceptions. Build it on the rules. They should come to you in the masses, and you lay out your schedule. Otherwise, you are not having a balance. Because if you get a unit size of 200, 300, or 400, you try to run around and please all of them. You'll find that that's the sure way to fail. Okay? The next thing you want to do, to become a strong sales director, I believe that you have to master the art of booking and the art of selling. Then you have to master the art of selecting prospects, inviting them to functions, following through, and recruiting, all in the same skill. To me, that's the definition of an artful, masterful sales director. You book, you sell, you select prospects, you invite, you follow through, and you recruit, all in the same skill. So, I consider the mental anguish of not building fast. I don't want to drag it out, I want to do it fast. And then you can enjoy it. Why would you want to just take it slow and average and mediocre? Ooh. Get it over with. Ooh, it's like people who spend 10 years getting their degree in between everything else. You can get a degree in Mary Kay so quickly. Why would we drag it out? So, I don't feel like I work hard. I feel like I work because I love what I do. It's not a major work job. It's only work when it's not working. Right? That's the only time. The pain is never in the actual performance of booking, selling, and recruiting. The pain is in the procrastination and the denial of what you can achieve and wondering why you're not putting forth more effort. Do you agree? It's not painful in performance, it's painful in procrastination. I walk on the treadmill every morning for 30 minutes, so what did I do? I put a sign right where I stare at the wall every day. 2 million, 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 2 million. Then I had it in my closet where I get dressed in the morning. 2 million. I had it on my bathroom mirror. 2 million. I tell my cleaning lady, don't touch that sign. Don't spray Windex on it. Don't mar it up. Don't touch it. Leave it, go. Then my daughter made a computer sign for my bedroom that said 2 million. Then I had rosettes made. I immediately called the ribbon place and said, I need $2 million buttons. Reaching for. I was a little shaky and I said, don't put 2 million on there, put reaching for 2 million. I called her back, I went into a complete panic over it. And you know what, when you break out into a sweat, it's a great goal. If it doesn't make you sweat, it's not a good goal. If it sounds great, yeah, it's not a goal. It's something you can do, it's not a stretch. If there's no stretch, there's no excitement. If there's no excitement, you're just doing it. You would have done it anyway, so don't even kid yourself. You got to feel the pain to set a goal. I got the rosettes. I gave them all a rosette. Above my telephone, in my office, and above my secretaries, I put 2 million. Used to have on the hotline, you've reached the $2 million reaching for headquarters. Reaching for $2 million headquarters. Hello. I put big wallpaper all over my meeting room that said 2 million. I took a $2 million logo that my husband designed. We Xeroxed it on 11 by 17 sheets in bright yellow paper, nothing boring, electric. And we taped it together from floor to ceiling. Looked like a big wall. We had to go in an hour and a half early every night to put a whole wall of $2 million wallpaper that sat behind the red jacket table so that you were illuminated by 2 million on your face. We did it every week, not once in a while. Didn't even want to do it, but we did it anyway. To put the goal in front of them, you can do that. It's a cheap way to decorate your room. And it's an effective way to put your goal in front of them more than once. We had sweatshirts made. I handed them notepads that said 2 million. Had notepads printed up at a quick print with a logo that said 2 million. Had sweatshirts for them that said 2 million. I put it in front of them, and you know what happened? Their performance became so exhilarating. Their performance, they were so energized and excited just talking about it that the procrastination drained, it just went away. There was no procrastination because there wasn't time to procrastinate. There was no time. We had 6 months to make something happen that we didn't plan the first 6 months. Because, see, procrastination is very draining. When you procrastinate, you start to doubt. When you doubt, it robs you of your energy and your excitement and your eventual success. So you got to electrify these people. Are you electrified yet? Do you want to reach for more? You should. If Mary Kay's willing to give it, why don't we take it? If you would give Mary Kay 40 to 60 hours a week and hang in there, can you imagine your income? Can you imagine the size of your unit? As a director who leads by example, it's much easier to have a unit that excels because, as I said, momentum is a powerful force. When you have momentum, you are stronger in your conviction that you will reach your goal when you have momentum. It's when you wimp out on your goal because there's no momentum, there's not that force, that surge of energy behind you. Let me tell you the next thing I think is very important for you is your success meeting. Work smart at your success meeting. Every activity at your success meeting should support product sales and recruiting. Every activity, product sales and recruiting. Every meeting of mine contains these elements: recognition, inspiration, sales of the product, marketing and merchandising ideas, and then I integrate the marketing plan and I educate people at every meeting. I don't stop and say, okay, now it's time for marketing plan. Okay, now it's time for the guest to go here and the consultants to do that. You know what a guest is? A guest is one step away from signing her agreement. Why do I want to take her out? Why wouldn't I want her to see that we do education? And the education should be in selling the product. You should give them the booking skills and the coaching skills at their orientation. You shouldn't be doing that at sales meeting. You should be selling at sales meeting, selling the product and selling the opportunity at sales meeting. If we don't have 25 or 30 guests at my meeting, I'm a mess. Because we're doing skincare class, we're doing spring glamour makeovers, we're doing satin hands and satin feet, we're doing a stress clinic. Everything revolves around guests. And educating the consultants on how to do a stress clinic by bringing people and actually doing it. I had a nail night at my home Tuesday night, the 27th of December, and I had 42 people. I had to cut them off. I wouldn't let them come unless they had a guest. Now they're screaming for nail nights on Monday nights because they know we can get 150 people or 200 people in there. Target your audience. Have your red jacket and your key people in tune with you so that you know a little bit about the guests that they're bringing so you can spotlight a red jacket at your meeting. So if you know somebody's bringing a sharp teacher, you put your sharp teacher that's at your head table on that night to do a 3-minute eye story. Your sharp people will call and tell you if they're bringing sharp people if you school them to do that. How to sell as a sales director. Remember, I'm supposed to teach you how to recruit and to sell. Again, selling is the same as recruiting. I do it at meetings, workshops, wherever customers are invited, as skincare class, nail art class, advanced classes, and I always have my customers be the models. When we're piloting new colors and new product introductions, I always call it a pilot program. Your customers are honored to be your guest to pilot new product introductions. I always call them and say, hey, Becky, how would you like to try Mary Kay's latest and greatest to help me pilot a program and launch it to my consultants at my Monday night success meeting? That's what you do. They're piloting a program. They feel important. People are more than willing to be models for you. Remember, as a sales director with a growing unit, your primary way to sell products is to conduct classes as well as direct your unit. Your classes, like you tell your consultants, are the nucleus of your business, which all else stems from. Don't ever lose sight of your purpose to regularly demonstrate the Mary Kay products, use the correct booking approach, select your 2 future hostesses, and implement the 4-point recruiting plan, and then follow through. Each month, you have to have a personal goal and a unit goal. State your goal. You have to have a personal recruiting goal, and then you have to have a unit recruiting goal for them. You need to tell them what your goal is. Tell them you're shooting for a gold medal. Tell them you're shooting for a gold medal, and tell them what their goal is. Tell them that they need to recruit 15 people so that your goal for the unit is 20 recruits or whatever your goal happens to be. Set a higher goal than you're comfortable with. If it doesn't make you sweat, don't use it. It's not good. Then you need to state your goal in your personal retail sales and your personal wholesale. State your goal. When you're looking for your own personal wholesale goal, you must then have a unit wholesale goal that's broken down into 2 parts. The A is your unit goal of production from your new recruits. And then your second one, B, is your unit wholesale production goal from your base unit. I sit and write down who I think will order because I know who's targeting stars. Then I say, okay, if my goal is to get 50 new recruits this month, I should be able to get a ton of production. You have to designate. You have to have those goals yourself. If you don't have those goals, you know you can't hit a target if you don't know where you're going. You know, don't let your month happen. Make your month happen. Don't let it just happen, and you have to be a major part of it happening. After you decide what your personal goal is, your unit goal is in both recruiting and wholesale, then you need to check the events and promotions planned to promote both those goals that month. Do you have something that's going to promote recruiting that month? Do you have coffees planned to help those people recruit? Do you have time set aside to do beauty shows to help them sell product, or nail nights, or satin hands nights, or any kind of a night? Do you have events planned to help them reach those goals? Then you need to oversee it all. That's very important. Watch star consultant intenders. Watch star recruiter intenders. If somebody has 2, say, who can we talk to get you to this red jacket? You already have 2 qualified. We only need 1 more person to talk to. Then watch your own area. Watch your top area of who's on target for the top 10 in retail in your unit, who's on target for the top 10. If you just take those people and highlight them and they're like 12, 13, you could say 1 terrific month could put you in the top 10 for our unit for retail's seminar year-to-date court sales. 3 recruits could put you in the number 1 spot. There's nothing wrong with that. Challenge them to be in the top 10 in your unit. You get that printout every month. The top 20 people, you ought to highlight their name and say, look how close you are to being in the top 10 for the whole entire year in recruiting. Look how close you are. You've got to keep that in front of them. I want to say something else in close. When was the last time you experienced awe in your business? Not awe, but pure out and out awe in your Mary Kay business. Has anybody experienced it lately? Do you know what it feels like to be able to just sit back and go, wow? Do you know that we have the most exciting and most rewarding career that any woman could ever aspire to want to have with Mary Kay? I want you to rekindle your dream and decide where you're going this year. And don't walk in your door at the end of the day and go, phew, I'm safe. Go in your door and say, wow, what a great day. I learned so much today. I'm so excited. I'm so energized. And you will soar. God bless you.